What's happening, guys and girls? Acrinator here, and welcome to another episode of World of Warcraft Dungeon Overview. This episode will be starting off the Nerubian dungeon, specifically going through Ahn'kahet, the Old Kingdom. I'll be guiding you through it with my druid you see here, so with that being said, let's dive straight into it. Beneath the icy heart of Northrend lie the ruins of a society more ancient than the Scourge, Vrykul, and possibly even the dragons. The Nerubians are an insectoid race that originally served Yogg-Saron when the world was young, until the old god was imprisoned beneath Ulduar. After losing their malevolent master, the Nerubians, led by their king Anub'arak, became more docile. Instead of trying to conquer and corrupt Azeroth, they decided to expand their subterranean empire. For many years, the Nerubians focused their efforts inwards, developing art, architecture, philosophy, and a deep understanding for the arcane arts. Their culture is rumored to have once been the most sophisticated on all of Azeroth, though it's quite difficult to piece together exactly what their civilization was like based on what little information we have. During the lead-up to the Third War, the undead Scourge began expanding its influence throughout Northrend, eventually leading them to Ahn'kahet's doorstep. While they fought valiantly, the Old Kingdom eventually fell underneath the tide of shambling corpses. With the help of the Death Knight Arthas, the Nerubians fallen were resurrected in service of the Lich King, including their king Anub'arak. Ahn'kahet was left abandoned for quite some time, and only recently has anyone taken interest in these once bustling caverns. Now the Scourge and the Twilight Hammer cult vie for control of the ruined city. And that's where we come in. You see, not all of the Nerubians fell during the War of the Spider. Some managed to escape the onslaught of the Scourge and the Faceless Ones, and have now reached out to us to help them rid their kingdom of these pests. This is also in our best interest, because our top strategists believe that Yogg-Saron's minions, currently in the deepest levels of Ahn'kahet, could easily overpower the undead and wreak havoc on the outside world if allowed to escape. Ahn'kahet is a level 73 to 80 dungeon with level 80 heroic mode located in Western Dragonblight. To find the entrance, you'll need to head due south from Ice Mist Village to the giant pit in the ground. You should see a few Nerubians lurking around the opening, meaning that you're heading in the right direction. On the right side of the pit, you'll see a little pathway that leads in a small circle going clockwise. When you reach your first junction, turn right and then turn left. You'll see some friendly Nerubians standing outside of a dungeon entrance, but don't go through that portal. That one leads to Azjal Nerub, which we'll cover next week. You'll want to head to the left of the meeting stone you see, down a long corridor with a more decorated entrance portal. That's the one you want to go through. Nadox was once a renowned scholar among the Nerubians, who was caught in the thick of battle during the War of the Spider. He was not a fighter by any means, and quickly fell to the Lich King's forces, only to be reanimated in order to slaughter his once beloved students. The charm and insight have been ripped out of him, leaving only a hollow puppet that's wholly subservient to the Scourge's dark master. The Nerubian rebels have asked us to put their friend down, so that he may finally rest in peace. This fight can really be boiled down into just two words: ad management. I know this is something I stress for just about every fight, but this is probably the most severe case of it that I've come across thus far. Nadox will summon packs of swarmers which have a few different abilities while they're up. The first thing is that their damage increases by 10% per swarmer in the group, meaning that they'll need to die just about as quickly as they get to you. Luckily, they don't have huge health pools, so you can just AoE them down for the most part. The real problem arises if the swarmers are allowed to live, and Nadox can buff them with Brood Rage. Their damage is then increased by 200% and their health goes up as well. You can pick out which ones have this buff by their larger size, and in fact they'll be practically glowing red. As Nadox takes damage, he'll occasionally summon a Guardian ad, which will make all enemies, including the boss, immune to damage until it's killed. Considering there's only one target to fight in this case, I think you can figure out what you're supposed to do on your own. And just in case you were worried that the healers didn't have enough to do already, the boss will afflict a random player with a plague that does a nasty bit of damage over time. Luckily, this can be dispelled, so get to it. For those not familiar with the story of Arthas Menethil, the former Prince of Lordaeron was chased after by Kael'thas Sunstrider after ransacking Quel'Thalas and destroying the Sunwell. Kael's attack failed horribly, and many of the Blood Elves who accompanied him to Northrend became officers of the Scourge known as Darkfallen. In particular, there are 3 Darkfallen princes led by their queen Lanathel from Icecrown. We've encountered these princes a few times already throughout questing and other dungeons in Northrend, and they've always been leading up to major Scourge incursions. As such, it's really a no-brainer that if we take someone out as significant as Taldaram, the Lich King's campaign in Ahn'kahet will be greatly set back. When you first make your way down to the prince, you'll notice that his platform is surrounded by a giant blue barrier, and he's floating up high in the sky. In order to bring him down to a fightable state, you'll need to go up to the 2 platforms on your right and click on the blue egg-looking things. The boss will summon 3 flame spheres that spread out in a pretty standard pattern. Just avoid being hit by them, and you'll avoid any damage they'd cause. Taldaram has 2 remaining abilities, which he'll use in quick succession. First, he'll vanish from sight fight before reappearing behind a random player. This player is stunned for 20 seconds while the prince replenishes his life, or until he takes 40,000 damage. So basically this is your chance to just wail on him until he's dead. This next bit doesn't have anything to do with the boss, more so where to go after you've defeated the prince, since I've seen so many groups get confused about this. Directly behind the platform Taldaram was standing on is a small doorway that was closed off up until you defeated the boss. Head down the narrow corridor in order to make it to the lower levels of the Old Kingdom. Jedoga is a dark shaman of the Twilight's Hammer cult who's taken up refuge in the lower levels of the Old Kingdom. She learned how to control her dark powers from Cho'Gall himself, and Jedoga now seeks to ready herself and her disciples for the day when Yogg-Saron breaks free from his prison once again. You'll notice Jedoga is also floating in the sky when you first encounter her. I see a pattern emerging from this dungeon. Anyways, to get her down, just kill the initiate cultists kneeling before her to start the fight. Just be warned that she'll immediately start attacking you once she lands, so make sure you're ready before going in. Once the boss starts attacking, more cultists will show up to kneel before their leader, except they'll be shielded from damage for the time being. The main thing to focus on for the first part of the fight is that the caster should stand further back to avoid area-based damage from her abilities. Once Jedoga reaches half health, she'll ascend once more, making her invulnerable. A bright incantation circle will appear underneath her, and one of the cultists from the circle will begin walking towards it. Make sure to kill them before they reach the circle. If they're not stopped, the cultists will be sacrificed, empowering the boss by increasing her attacks by 200% for a short while. Considering the damage she does normally, you really don't want that. While the Scourge have only recently taken up shop in Ahn'kahet, the Faceless Ones have been there since the War of the Spider, giving their old god master a foothold from which to discreetly spread his presence. With the invasion of the Lich King's forces, Yogg-Saron has begun corrupting the natural inhabitants of the cavern, namely the fungal giants. Amanitar is the largest and most dominant fungal giant within the Old Kingdom, and it now overflows with the dark powers of the old god. Unlike the other followers of the Black Empire, this dark beast has no conscience for which to cloud its judgment. Amanitar knows nothing more than what it's told to do, which for now is to kill any who do not bear the mark of its master. When you first encounter Amanitar, you'll notice a shit ton of mushrooms sprout up from the ground. You should take note that some are called healthy mushrooms, while others are called poisonous mushrooms. Whatever you do, don't touch the poisonous ones. They release a toxic cloud when they're killed. Amanitar will cast Mini on a random player, reducing their size and damage done significantly. This is where the healthy mushrooms come in, because when you kill them, you get a slight damage boost and Mini's effect is removed. When the War of the Spider had just begun, some Nerubians burrowed deep under the city in order to escape the oncoming Scourge army. Unfortunately, some dug too deep and uncovered the domain of Yogg-Saron. The trapped old god reacted quickly at this opportunity and sent his Faceless Ones to attack the Nerubians. Though they may have once served the ancient evil, that was in centuries past, and the Nerubians are no longer held in his favor. One of the leaders of the assault on the Old Kingdom was Herald Volazj. Not much is known about this mysterious entity, only that it serves Yogg-Saron, and none have survived a face-to-face encounter with it as of yet. The only important thing for this fight is an ability called Insanity, where the Herald separates you from your group and puts you up against 4 images of your party members. You'll need to take out all 4 of them if you want to get out of the dream world and back to the main fight. This may be difficult for the healer, but the rest of the group, especially the DPS, should be able to get out of there with no problems. Just break free of the dream and pop all of your cooldowns to kill the boss in case your healer is having a tough time. Well, I hope you all enjoyed this video, and if you did, feel free to give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more like it, maybe even subscribe. Links to my social media and whatnot are in the description below. And as for the comment question, if it's possible for a race to escape the clutches of the old gods like we see with the Nerubians, do you think it's possible to overcome the Void's corruption after the mind is lost once, much like we see with the Draenei in Makari on Argus? I know this was all the way back in Wrath, and Blizzard likely wasn't thinking of the ramifications of this plot point, but it gets me wondering a bit. Anyways, that's all the time I've got for today, so until next time, don't die.